by Hicham Chahine, founder and co-CEO at NIP Group, and also Faisal Al Hammadi, managing partner at Further Ventures. Give them a big hand. Be louder. The floor is yours.
So, good morning, everyone. Our panel is about why MENA is primed for Bitcoin mining. So I'd like to challenge a little bit the narrative today. UAE is not, or MENA, or UAE in specific are not probably a normal destination for mining, due to weather conditions, due to energy prices, but still, we see mining topic is becoming a mainstream, and but what's happening is a little bit beyond the mining itself. So the physical mining itself. So we see a lot of international players are considering UAE home for their mining entities, either from the compute side or infrastructure side, and so on and so forth. So the why is it about the regulation clarity, or it's about taxes, or it's about the ecosystem of digital asset in general that UAE is growing and growing tremendously on this space. So this is what we're going to explore with my fellow panelists, that I'll give them like few seconds to introduce each other, each one of them. Yeah. Hicham?
So my name is Hicham Chahine. I'm the founder of NIP Group. Our business started originally in the video game space. We did that, became the world's leading player when it comes to games entertainment. And then we have been on this journey on how we arrived to AI applications in game. And that led us into a detour, which is the mining space. Given that we had an ambition to acquire large-scale computing capacity to eventually go full circle and end up in the AI application space. So there's still one step missing on that way, but that is a little bit about us.
Faisal?
Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. I'm Faisal Al Hammadi, a managing partner at Further, which is an investment platform based out of Abu Dhabi. And we focus on the future of finance and capital markets. And in my prior role, I played a role in setting up a Bitcoin mining company here in Abu Dhabi that's backed by ADQ, and happy to share more on that.
Perfect. I'll start with you, Faisal. This question is for you both. What makes this region relevant to global mining today?
So, with regards to mining and Bitcoin broadly, at the macro level, the more diversification, the better. And the question was, where in the Middle East do we have significant mining capacity? We thought that the UAE could be a good place because of a few reasons. One is on regulation. So typically the UAE has been friendly towards digital assets for the past at least 8 years. ADGM, VARA, Central Bank. And it's not only that they're friendly with regulations, it's also they've been constant. There's no volatility around, do we like crypto or not? It's been stable, which allows for people to plan and invest here long term. So I think that regulations is a key driver. Secondly, there's also an opportunity to work with the power sector. So obviously, with miners, we've seen a trend where Bitcoin mining becomes very complementary to managing the power grid. And in the US, in Texas, you have a lot of companies working with the power companies there around how to supplement the load. So we did the same thing here. About 3-4 years ago, we sat down with the power company and we looked at the demand curve for energy. And we realized that the UAE consumes 3 times the energy in the summer than the winter. And it made sense to use all that excess capacity of energy to mine Bitcoin. On one hand, you have a company that's accumulating Bitcoin, which is great, as long as you believe in the price thesis of Bitcoin. On the other hand, you have a power company that's getting more demand, more income, which allows for the government to reduce its subsidy in power. So that's a win-win scenario when it comes to Bitcoin and government or power companies that I feel is not spoken enough about. And I think that we'll see more and more power companies looking at Bitcoin mining as a way to optimize for their capacity.
Yeah.
Hicham?
And a little bit of what Faisal is saying is on the regulatory framework, right? We started out in Abu Dhabi doing something completely different than mining. We were doing video games. But then we discovered one thing is the favorable business environment in general, not only for mining companies. So when you're here, operating a business in terms of efficiencies, in terms of connectivity to the world is there. So generally just having a business environment and presence where it's attractive to do any business is very favorable for coming here. Then you start venturing into the crypto digital asset space, Bitcoin mining and so on. And for us walking that journey, we realized that this was probably the most favorable region to do that. What Faisal is talking about in terms of regulatory framework. So for us as a business, we are incorporated and have a subsidiary in ADGM. ADGM actually has a crypto treasury license. You have a mining license, and that framework is extremely stable to operate under.
Without mentioning the custody, the rest of the service, the underlying services of any Bitcoin mining operation.
Exactly. So that stable environment, coupled with we are supported and backed by Abu Dhabi Investment Office. So it is not just that
this was my second question. So I need a little bit of a deep dive into your partnership with ADIO. So and what will enable a crypto mining company like yours and AI infrastructure and compute in general?
Yeah. So that relationship kind of showcases the fundamentals, right? Because on the back of that support, we were able in just 9 months' time to build the largest Bitcoin mining company in the Middle East and one of the top listed miners in the world. The support is not just, oh, we have some licensing processes, you can get your license, favorable business environment. It's actually anchored in government entities pushing that agenda and sectors forward, right? So it is not just the UAE saying that, hey, we have favorable business environment, you have the licenses into place. They're actually willing to invest in the space and back prominent entities to drive that agenda through public-private cooperations as well.
So Faisal, on regulatory again, and so further is not they didn't invest into mining, but from your views, how founders are seeing UAE from the outside when they look into this, and what is the main attraction here? So what for them, what is the main attraction? People like Hicham, are you gonna second Hicham on what he liked in ADGM and Abu Dhabi or not?
Yes, I think it goes back to the point that they're able to plan long term, and if they have access to basically the capacity, they're able to mine Bitcoin based on the tariffs that are available by the power company, and they have the clarity, and I think that's the key factor. There's also the element of a partnership. So, for example, in 2 of the mining sites that are here based in Abu Dhabi, we have Marathon Digital, which is a publicly listed company in the US. That's a equity partner in those locations, and they play an operational role in servicing those sites. So I think the pathway is clear, the pathway is there. It's just a matter of whether they want to set it up privately or to collaborate with state-owned companies in doing so. And we believe that also being able to work with global partners has helped a lot, because it helps to also tackle some of the operational, technical, environmental challenges of mining. So in our partnership with Marathon Digital, we're able to optimize for those factors. Like one example is, what choice of cooling do we pursue, given the environmental factors here? And we've tried basically the top 3 areas, whether it's hydro or liquid or air-cooled. And we came to the conclusion that immersion technology, liquid technology, is the most optimal way to be able to make sure that the ASICs perform the way that they should, without being impacted by adverse weather conditions or dust and so forth. So that's why we think working with global partners can help to alleviate some of those issues.
So Hicham, going back to you from the entertainment business to Bitcoin mining, is Bitcoin mining for you as a company as an entry point for more sophisticated infrastructure and compute and AI infrastructure?
Yeah. There's a couple of dimensions to it, right? We are firm believers in holding what we mine, right? So we sit on what we mine, and we do believe in Bitcoin, right? That business for us and how it came along was, we are looking into the space of AI applications that requires AI compute. But we discovered that to get to AI compute, we needed to do some other sort of compute. And as we got more into it, that was very attractive in terms of a long-term investment perspective, in terms of generating free cash flow in periods that we did need it. Because at the end of the day, it is electricity into a machine, you get coin. And us expanding that footprint means that we sit on a vast amount of power and access to power, which can either be utilized for mining, or it can be utilized for other types of computing that we then can utilize with what we're doing on the application side to utilize that compute.
So maybe a question for both of you. So international companies like Faisal's mentioned, Mara or NIP, are basing operation here, or at least the brain of the operation is here. And in your case, the coins are gonna be here as well. So this requires some, Faisal already highlighted about the infrastructure of the country or the ecosystem in general and the digital asset space. But going forward, so we have a lot of virgin Bitcoin, I will call it, from the UAE. So this might be, we didn't see it yet in the market. This might be, I wish Michael Saylor is here, to regarding, are we going to see treasury companies in the UAE? I'll start with Faisal, because you might have insight and I don't, but are we going to see treasury companies holding Bitcoin on the treasury in the UAE?
So I'll touch on the topic of virgin Bitcoin as well, and on the debt. So I think the market has not proved that virgin Bitcoin has a premium yet, but I think long term there is reason to believe that it could. And yes, we have a lot of Bitcoin that was mined here, and we think that allocation is something that could be preserved long term. And down the line, it will be useful to have basically clean Bitcoin or Bitcoin with no history. As institutions will want to get block space, we think that block space will become more relevant or in higher demand. So we could see a premium to that one day. In terms of treasury companies, the short answer is yes. I do think that some of the public companies will start to hold Bitcoin. I think some have in small quantities, but no one has really pulled off like Mr. or like Planet yet. But I do see it coming. I think long-term or sustainable is going to be companies that either hold part of their reserves in Bitcoin, as you would with any assets or commodities. And then you have at the other extreme.
Do you think as further, sorry for interruption, to hold Bitcoin or in your fund and treasury?
We do.
Ah, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a scoop.
Yeah, exactly. So we made the decision to have an allocation of Bitcoin, which we could choose to either preserve it for future growth based on asset value, or we can also use it to service our companies. Back to what we do, we invest in early stage companies that focus on financial services, and all of them in the short term, they need working capital. So we're able to lend our Bitcoin to them so they can use it to settle payments and so forth. So we do think having a Bitcoin treasury, even as a fund, is important, both from a commercial point of view and from being able to support our companies.
So Hicham, he talked about companies. What about government? So are you having any discussion about the UAE government holding Bitcoin? Because I know that government entities like Mubadala, they already they have a big chunk of ETFs, and so they are not yet holding Bitcoin as a digital asset themselves. So are you having this type of discussion, and are you seeing this happening?
So we're seeing it everywhere in the world, right? The topic is a new topic. It is evolving rapidly. With how friendly the UAE has been towards having entities involved in the space, the regulatory aspects of it, having investments which brings them large exposure to BTC, it is not unnatural to assume that there are discussions surrounding a Bitcoin reserve, including that in the reserve and utilizing in that aspect. But at the end of the day, you are already seeing the government here heavily involved in terms of having exposure to it. I'll being through ETFs, being through Ninjas and Pajamas, which generates a significant amount of coins. You have several mining sites where government entities in terms of the sovereign wealth funds are involved. And there has been an accumulation done, just not directly by the government, but by government either controlled, backed, or influenced stakeholders, which are sitting on a large amount of Bitcoin these days.
And if I may chip in as well, so I think the answer is yes, and I think that they are going to hold Bitcoin directly. I think it's a function of making sure that they have the right counterparts. Typically, those large organizations, they already have existing relationships with large banks, and they use them for not just digital assets, but in general to service them as fund admins or so forth. And a lot of these global institutions are spending time in the UAE because they see the UAE as being a good market to launch new products. In the US, they still think there's obviously much bigger demand, but they think it'll take a bit longer to be able to go to market there. So now they're seeing this region as a way to test their products, launch their products with a quick go-to-market strategy. And I suspect within the next year or two, the big banks will be able to service these big institutions. Because the only thing that's holding them back today is making sure that they have the right counterparty. There's no counterparty risk. There's no risk of hacks or so forth. And I see that happening in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So, Hicham, you're running mining facilities outside the UAE due to several conditions, and Faisal already highlighted about the type of cooling technique that miners are using. So do you see technology or mining rigs builder are innovative enough to catch up against this, let's say, severe condition of weather during the summer here, let's say. So here now we are in a perfect weather. I'm sure the government have 50% of waiting electricity to someone to buy, but in 2-3 months time, so then we will be at peak.
Yep.
So do you see builders or like companies like Bitmain and rest are building something, are innovative enough to catch up and reduce the factor of weather here?
Yeah. Well, you're seeing technologies such as hydro cooling in machines, right, which gives you an additional offset to harsh conditions, right? But it's also back to how you build your sites yourself. We're currently looking at sites in similar weather conditions and building those things out where we utilize immersion cooling, right? Where you essentially dip the machine into liquids and you're able to run it as it was a natural environment and get the maximum performance out of that. So it is being caught up, especially on the site build side. On the machine side, so you have seen attempts to do that, to make it feasible to just place machines and mine in environments like this, and particularly when it's 50, 60 degrees Celsius outside.
No,
so
60, 50 is okay.
Yeah. Some environments we are in half 60. So you're definitely seeing that ability to mine in those conditions even. So that is not something that is unfeasible these days.
So I won't take mining as a piece alone. I see mining and Bitcoin mining in general as part of the whole ecosystem, where UAE made a leapfrog advancement in terms of regulations, in terms of clarity, institution adoption, banks taking. This is all together. The ecosystem is moving so fast. So what is, in your opinion, and I'll be concluding with this question probably, what is, in your opinion, needed in the next 3 years to see UAE leading globally, to maintain its position, and to innovate more and more in the digital asset space? Faisal?
So if we think about what are the core factors that will lead to that, and to your point, it's not just the mining, it's the ecosystem around it. And I think if you look at the past 3 years, we've seen a lot more clarity around how do you custody the Bitcoin, how do you insure it, how do you manage it as part of your treasury management strategy. Even a simple thing is like doing a financial audit. So if you're holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet, how do you get the top 4 firms to be able to audit you? That itself was a learning curve. I can tell you that. And even some of the auditors are not comfortable today. They say, no, I don't want to touch it. So as those auditors, as those service providers become more comfortable on the process and regulations, I think that will lead to more institutions holding. So the short answer is, the more providers there are here, the more that they accept the asset class, the more that institutions see the value and demand it. I think that's what's going to increase the ecosystem.
Hicham?
I think in general it is, I echo what Faisal say in terms of having it as a pure Bitcoin play, right? I think it will start, and it has already started in other areas, where you're able to incorporate it as part of your business strategy, right? We're essentially we're running a very diversified business which spans multiple verticals. We have the Bitcoin mining and treasury component of that as part of the broader strategy. As long as we use it as a diversification play, that is easy to operate these days, easy to navigate. Now it's the next step on how you carve it out to not be part of a wider business strategy, because the way we're doing it and having it in our business essentially mitigates risk, reduce risks, and so on. So having it regulated as an asset class on its own and being able to run it as a pure play is probably the next phase.
So in a country where the digital asset ecosystem, or how fluent our audience here and in UAE in general about digital asset, maybe this is the only place in the world where digital asset people are not minority. So probably 60-70% of of people I meet every day, they are all exposed somehow to digital assets. So UAE mining is one of a big scene. We didn't focus a lot on access to capital. We didn't in this panel, but I believe the mining aspect of here is evolving, but from the other end, we will see the digital asset space. UAE is becoming a cornerstone of what's going to happen next. So I would like to thank you for listening, and I would like to thank my fellow panelists for bearing with me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Walid.